Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the King, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a great day. No face cam today because I'm still a bit under the weather. And today's video, we're going to be focusing on the Deathslinger versus the Huntress. You guys probably heard this comparison being used so many times by streamers and just people in general, and that's because the Deathslinger is the closest thing that we have to the Huntress. He is the only other 110% killer that has a projectile, and you're going to hear this comparison a lot. So today, I'm going to lay out the pros and cons for both the Deathslinger and the Huntress. You guys can go ahead and determine who's stronger, and at the end, I'm going to give my opinion as well. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the Deathslinger and all of his pros. This is basically going to contrast all of the Huntress's cons, so you will see some comparisons there, but we're only going to focus on the pros, and then we'll make comparisons after. So first of all, he can shoot through objects. Because his harpoon has a very small hitbox, he can literally shoot through the tiniest peaks and then hit the survivors. So if you're running around some loops and there's a little bit of an opening in line of sight and he can make the shot, chances are he will hit you through that. In addition to this, he also reels you in closer. So if you're running away, instead of taking a hit and getting that speed boost and going further, if he manages to harpoon you and pulls you in, what ends up happening is that you're way closer to him now instead of getting the distance, and then you'll get the speed boost after that. He can also go ahead and stop pallet loops pretty easily if you're running around loops because of his other pro of shooting instantly, having no hesitation in doing so. He can stop some really good loops. Think about if you were running on the Ironworks of Misery and you're about to make it to the window, but he shoots you. Those are the kind of loops that he can stop quite easily. Now, the Huntress can do this as well, but as I said, we'll compare those comparisons in a moment. He is also not map reliant, meaning you can play him on any map and chances are you'll do good at him. Because of this, you can literally be successful on any map, and that is one of the reasons why he's one of the better killers in the game. Moving back to the whole looping scenario, he can also straight up stop you from dropping the pallets as well, because if you're camping a pallet or something like that and he peeks around the corner and quickly shoots you, you won't have enough time to drop the pallet and he can just pull you in and then get that hit on you. And speaking of hits, it's a guaranteed hit initially if he manages to get you, because even if he doesn't smack you and the chain breaks, you get injured with the deep wound status effect. Now because of this, you are guaranteed a hit. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Huntress. She's on the flip side. Let's talk about some pros that she has. She doesn't need line of sight. For the Deathslinger, you do need the line of sight. You have to see the person in order to hit them. Huntress doesn't need to do this, and that's because she has an arc. Because of this arc, she doesn't necessarily need to see you to hit you, as the hatchets will come down. As for the Deathslinger, it shoots in a straight line. The Huntress also has unlimited range. Unlike the Deathslinger, she can go as far as she wants with her hatchets. The Deathslinger only has, I believe, 18 meters to work with, which kind of sucks. I do wish it was 24, as big as his heartbeat, but sadly, we don't have that. He only has an 18-meter range, while the Huntress can go unlimited. She can throw her hatchets faster, meaning when she winds up her hatchet and you hear the little shing noise effect, it can go faster. So she can just toss them really slow or toss them really quick. This is as quick as the Deathslinger's gun. It gives you a little bit time to react to, so you can just toss a hatchet at will, or you can aim it for a nice precise shot. In addition to this, she also has really good basement pressure. If someone's in the basement and they save someone, if the Huntress goes there, chances are they're both going to get knocked down, because as soon as you toss a hatchet, you can just walk back up the stairs and smack them down. It's an easy 1-2 combo, and she probably has one of the best basement pressures right next to Leatherface. Moving on, she can also lure survivors into dead zones and places that she wants them to be. By holding up a hatchet and priming it, you can force survivors into awkward positions and into corners and dead zones where you can get an easy hit on them just by holding your hatchet up. Now, the Deathslinger can kind of do this, but just because his hitbox is a little bit smaller, people can bait the hit, they can run and then run back, and chances are you might miss. With the Huntress, it takes us to her next pro. She has a really big beach ball hitbox on her hatchets. Because of this, it's a little bit more hard to bait attacks, especially if her hatchet is fully wind up and ready to go. If you try to bait an attack, chances are you might get hit, especially with latency as well. Because of her hitbox being so big, it is really hard to dodge those hatchets in a situation like that. And that brings me to the last point. This also refers back to the earlier point of her arc. She has good pressure on people that are on hooks, or if you're trying to go for cross maps. For example, if you're running discordants or something like that, you can easily hit someone by just chucking a hatchet if you're really good with Huntress. So now we need to talk about the cons of these killers. What are the things that draw them back? And these are the things that we're going to look at that will compare if they're better or worse. So let's start with the Deathslinger. As I mentioned, he has a smaller hitbox. Because of this, you need to be really accurate with your shots. 1 inch to the left or 1 inch to the right will throw your shot off and you won't hit the survivor. Whereas the Huntress, as I mentioned, has a bigger hitbox. If you toss a hatchet, chances are you'll hit. Another con that the Deathslinger has is that you can break his chain. So if you are already injured and you break his chain, nothing really happens. With the Huntress, the hatchet is a guaranteed hit. As soon as you hit someone with it, they will lose a health save. Do it again, they will die. With the Deathslinger, you still need to reel them in and hit them, so it does take a little bit more time, and if anything is in the way or a survivor comes in the way of that, chances are you'll hit them or they can break the chain. As I mentioned with the Huntress, her big pro was that she has unlimited range. She can throw as far as she can see as long as there's nothing in the way, but the Deathslinger only has 18 meters to work with. Because of this, if someone is a little bit out of reach, you won't be able to hit them, and this happens more often than you think, so having that little extra range does help the Huntress. The Deathslinger also only can shoot in a straight line and not an arc. Because of this, he needs line of sight. If you don't see the survivor, you won't be able to hit them, which helps the Huntress because she can toss over rocks or anything like that and hit someone that's on the hook, still applying pressure to people that are on hooks, whereas a Deathslinger can't do that. Now, the Huntress has her cons as well. First of all, she needs to reload at lockers. So if you're in a chase and you need a hatchet but you don't have one, you have to go all the way to a locker in order to reload. Because of this, you might have to leave the chase or anything like that, whereas a Deathslinger can reload at any point in the game. Whenever they decide to reload normally after their first shot, they can do that. And there's add-ons that also help the Deathslinger reload faster. The Huntress has these as well, but you still need to go ahead and find a locker. And in some of the maps, especially like the newer map, it's a little bit more hard to find these lockers. In addition to this, she is a 110% killer, meaning she moves a little bit slower, and because of this, loops would naturally hurt her. She's not as fast as the other killers. The reason why it's easier for the Deathslinger to work with loops, unlike the Huntress, is because he has no windup. The Huntress needs to pull her hatchet up and toss it. That amount of time, that fraction of a second where it takes you to wind up your hatchet, will make the difference if you hit the survivor or not, depending on the loop. With the Deathslinger, he can instantly aim and shoot you at any point and then reel you in. In fact, he can even hit you if you already dropped the pallet and move around to still get that hit on you. So there is a good chance he will hit you. As for the Huntress, she needs to wind up, and if you don't have add-ons for that, you're more than likely to miss that hatchet throw, which takes me to my next point. She is add-on reliant. Now, you don't have to play the Huntress with add-ons, and you don't have to play the Deathslinger with add-ons, but more often than not, you see players running add-ons on the Huntress that increase her wind-up time or tosses between throws, because those are add-ons that make her really good. As for the Deathslinger, I've played a lot of games with no add-ons or very basic add-ons, and it does help. Unless you're a really good Huntress and you only run brown and yellow add-ons, you're more than likely to run the Flower Babushka or the Infantry Belt, and it will help you make those shots. And that takes us to our next point of how maps can affect her. When the developers make new maps, sometimes they forget about some of the killers, and think about the Family Residence map when you're playing as Huntress. There's a lot of things that interfere with her hatchet throws, whereas a Deathslinger, having a smaller hitbox with his harpoon, it won't really affect him as much. So sometimes if you get a bad map for the Huntress, you won't do good. So get a bad map, you won't do good. Whereas the Deathslinger can go on any map and pretty much perform really well. And finally, the last thing on our list for the cons is that they recently reworked the hitboxes. So before this patch, a lot of Huntress mains would easily just toss hatchets. What ends up happening is if you're healing or if you're working on a generator, they will hit you through it. So it was a bit unfair, and now they finally fixed that, which is going to cause a lot of these Huntress players that have been used to doing these things to not be able to do them anymore. So you won't be able to get hit unfairly when you're working on a generator or if you're healing, because the hitboxes have been adjusted. This is a con now because it's a major change from where she's at. So that is all of the pros and cons. You guys can determine now whether you think the Deathslinger is better or the Huntress is better, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it. So the bottom line is, who is better, the Deathslinger or the Huntress? And I'm going to have to give it to the Deathslinger. I think the Deathslinger is better just because of the amount of pressure that he can apply when going through loops and things like that. With the Huntress, if you run out of hatchets and you need to rely on just her speed going around some loops, or if you get a bad map, chances are you'll have a bad game. I haven't encountered that with the Deathslinger yet because you can cut those loops off, maps don't really matter, and you can shoot through objects as well. So with the Huntress, you need to have a clear shot at them. With the Deathslinger, you don't. You can shoot through objects, reel them in, and smack them. And you can use perks such as Save the Best for Last and some add-ons as well to basically put the cherry on top. You can easily get the 1-2 combination by hitting a survivor and then reeling them in when they get that speed boost. It's quite easy. And if you understand where your survivors are going and how they will play, you'll do pretty good. Now, with that being said, this is a very close debate because the Deathslinger and the Huntress are neck and neck. And what also makes me sway more towards the Deathslinger rather than the Huntress is that he's fun. And I think that's something that's overlooked a lot when people are playing Dead by Daylight. We're so focused on winning and how to win that we forget that the game can actually be fun as well. And the Deathslinger is one of those characters that I've been so excited to play, and I just have so much fun playing. So for that reason, I'm going to put the Deathslinger higher than the Huntress. And that's just my opinion. You don't need to agree with me. You can come up with anything you like in the comments below. I'd love to read them and hear what you guys say. Soon we're gonna have a full-on tier list. I'm working really hard on it. I don't want to just put a tier list up there where I'm just speaking from my head as I always do. I want to actually put some facts on paper and talk to you guys about it. So you'll see that in the coming days. Tomorrow we'll talk about Dead by Daylight Mobile and things like that. But that's gonna wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure you leave a like down below. Subscribe if you are brand new. Tell me if you agree or disagree with me. I hope this video helps in going through with the debate about the Deathslinger and the Huntress. And as always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we will see you in the fog.